رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أفضل الصلاة وأزكى التسليم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ومجر الحق على قلوبنا وألسنتنا وارزقنا الإخلاص في كل قول وعمل آمين. We continue inshallah today with Surah Al-Qiyamah. Over the last couple of weeks, we started talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responding to those who deny Qiyamah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a vivid description of the moments of death. And how did these moments of death are going to come to every single one of us. And therefore, the outcome of this, knowing how this is going to come upon us, is to take heed, to understand how to deal with this life and to put it in its right position. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said after this, He says, after giving this description of what's going to happen at the moments of death, Allah talks about the same people that initially we said denied in the beginning of the verses, denied Yawm al-Qiyamah, denied that the day of resurrection is going to come, that there's actual resurrection is going to happen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about and says that they are neither فَلَا صَدَّقَ وَلَا صَلَّى. This human that denied this, neither did they have belief in their heart, and they neither had belief nor did they pray. The scholars talk about this, meaning that they didn't have the internal iman, something that happens through your heart, and neither they did any physical actions, acts of worship. No iman, no Islam. فَلَا صَدَّقَ وَلَا صَلَّى وَلَكِنْ كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّى. But neither, instead of believing that they completely rejected the truth and turned away from it. ثُمَّ ذَهَبَ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهِ يَتَمَطَّى. And not only that, but on top of this, after denying, not believing, not praying, not doing any good deeds, completely denying and rejecting, they're all boastful and arrogant about it. They go back to their family, very boastful and arrogant about it. Okay. And this is what has been covered thus far. After these description of these people, so the actions that they make, the actions that they do, instead of taking heed of the moment of death and taking heed of what they need to do in this dunya, we say they do all of these actions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes with an extremely strong reprimand or a wa'id, a warning. It says, أَوْلَى لَهُ فَأَوْلَى ثُمَّ أَوْلَى لَهُ فَأَوْلَى. Yeah, and this is where we start today, inshallah, these verses. أَوْلَى لَهُ فَأَوْلَى. Sometimes أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى ثُمَّ أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى. أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى. The word أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى, this is it's more of an expression. It has multiple meanings, as the Mufassirin would put it. One of them here, based on this translation, it says, woe to you and more woe. Again, woe to you and even more woe. And then another translation says, closer and closer it comes to you, then closer and closer still it comes to you. Two meanings here. أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى ثُمَّ أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى. The Mufassirin would say that أَوْلَى لَكَ means الْوَيْلُ لَكَ, means destruction is unto you. It's a dua that has a meaning of this negative connotation that may Allah destroy you. So it's a dua that has the meaning of destruction is upon you and destruction is unto you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى ثُمَّ أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى. And again, أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى. The other meaning of it, which they say here in the translation, is that closer unto you and closer it comes to you. What is closer? They're saying also, this is another thing in the Arabic language where there's something that is omitted. It's a word used for a dua, but the dua has its negative connotation. And it says, اقترب لك, came closer to you, كل ما تسوء or كل ما تكره. Everything that you were trying to stay away from, everything that you hated, you didn't like, now it's going to come closer to you. Now it's a time that is going to come upon you, which is what? The resurrection, the death, the punishment. All of these combined are going to come onto you, closer to you. In both cases, we said this is an extremely strong warning and reprimand for those who rejected and disbelieve. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in these two verses, used awla 4 times. أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى. We said that means wail, destruction. It's destruction to you and destruction. ثُمَّ, and then, on top of that, أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى. 2 more times, أَوْلَى and أَوْلَى. 4 times in 2 verses, an extremely strong reprimand or warning comes to say, those who reject, those who engage in these acts of rejection of the truth of the resurrection, what happens to them? Destruction after destruction after destruction after destruction. Extremely strong warning. أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى ثُمَّ أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of concludes all of these verses and returns back to أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَن يُتْرَكَ سُدًى. Does the human being, or do people, think that they will be left without purpose, aimlessly, right? Or they will be left like this, with no purpose in their lives? أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَن يُتْرَكَ سُدًى. The word suda is understood when we say aimlessly, without purpose. The Mufassirin talk about 2 things as well that you can think about. First of all, it's telling the human being, said, okay, after all of this great creation, after the day of resurrection and the things that we talked about thus far in these verses, still human beings have this tendency somehow to reject, to disbelieve in the day of judgment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting it to us. It's like, how does a human being, one of us, can believe or can think that they are just created as such and left aimlessly? Some people actually believe that there is a creator. That the creator, for us we believe it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This creator created humanity, created everything, and just left it to be. Meaning that just go do whatever you want. I created you and I just said I left you. This is actually a belief. And therefore they don't completely reject the notion of religion. Meaning that this creator, for us we said it's Allah, when He created, He just said, okay, you can do, there's no rules. Whatever you want to do, do it. You're good to go. I just created you and I left you. This verse says, أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَن يُتْرَكَ سُدًى. Does people or human being, they believe they're going to be left aimlessly without any direction in this world? So that can be referring to, we said, the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the direction from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created and offered a way of us to live. Revealed a guidance for us to stand by. That's one. The other one is, أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَن يُتْرَكَ سُدًى. Suda can be meant, like we said, aimlessly, or like it's forgotten about, muhmal. Kind of, it's abandoned. Meaning, it says, do human beings believe that they will just be living this life and afterwards, that there's nothing afterwards? So they left abandoned. They're going to be just in their graves and then that's it. So this is referring now not to the revelation and the guidance, but referring to the day of judgment and the resurrection, which is the whole theme of these verses. So both ways are understood from أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَن يُتْرَكَ سُدًى. How does a human being can think that they will not be held accountable on a day of judgment? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is confirming. This is a question meant to confirm that it's going to happen. That you're not, meaning that you're not, actually not confirming, it's actually negating this belief in people. That the confirmation is what? That the day of judgment is going to happen. So it's a negation to this kind of belief. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them, He said, O human, the one who believes that you're going to be left like this abandoned, which is a completely rejected belief, as we said, okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds them, says, how would you believe that this is what's the obstacle to a lot of people of not believing that there's a day of judgment? Some people actually would make the argument and say, how Allah is going to create him again? This is a very famous narration. That person comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, okay, and he holds like a bone that is about to like fall apart of something, a dead animal or dead, and he comes and he just like purposefully like kind of destroys it with his own fingers, and he says, like he makes it a powder, like a bone makes it a powder. And I said, do you think that you saying, O Muhammad, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to recreate this again? You're saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make out of this dust a human being again? Humans have this amazing tendency, subhanAllah. Sometimes it's out of arrogance. Out of arrogance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all from arrogance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَمْ يَكُ نُطْفَةً مِّن مَّنِيٍّ يُمْنَى. Oh, you human, do you actually forgot that you were nothing but مَنِيٍّ يُمْنَى, but a sperm? Just this droplet of water, or this droplet of mani, just a droplet of sperm. This is all of us humans are created in such way. Out of nothing, something that is that is looked down upon. So when you're feeling arrogant, you remember that I was just created out of a drop of sperm. But when you think about it as well, I said this is part of, subhanAllah, I don't know, sometimes, again, it baffles me. How us humans, sometimes can we become arrogant. When we look at the creation, أَلَمْ يَكُنْ نُطْفَةً مِّن مَّنِيٍّ يُمْنَى. Haven't you been created out of this sperm? أَلَمْ يَكُنْ نُطْفَةً مِّن مَّنِيٍّ يُمْنَى ثُمَّ كَانَ عَلَقَةً فَخَلَقَ سَوَى. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala became this mani, this droplet of sperm, made it a clinging clot, or a clot of blood that is clinging into the rahim, into the womb. And then He developed it and perfected it, or put it in a particular form or a particular proportion. Didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do that to you? We're saying, going back to the arrogance, when you look at this cycle of creation, how we humans are procreating, how we're created. Sometimes we take it for granted because sometimes you go to science class and it says, there's a sperm and there's an ovary, and then they come together and then human being is created. But you look at this as like, how? This in itself, from a scientific, it's a miracle that is happening in front of our eyes every single day. It's a obvious miracle. These things that are of no value, as we say, like looked down upon, a sperm and an ovary, become a human being. And we think we think it for normal, right? We take it for granted. It's like, yeah, it happens. I think this is normal. It is normal because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it to be normal as such. But in it of itself, you're not going to go and get like a drop of water and put it with something, and it's just going to grow and becomes like this. It's because Allah created it that way. If Allah is the one who created it that way, and you and I see it every single day of our life, a new life comes, a new human being is created in front of our eyes, why is it too hard to believe that the one who created this system is the one who can recreate it again? And that's what Allah is directing our attention to. He created you from this nutfa that moved into a clot. And this clot, out of this blood clot, you become a human being. SubhanAllah. The one who has made this cycle happen, you should be reflecting to say, yes, this is what I call this. This is not quote unquote normal, meaning this is not like, this is a miracle that is happening. So if the one who created that, He is certainly able to recreate it and resurrect it again. So looking at your creation would make us all humble to know what our origin is, but it would also make us reflect upon the Day of Judgment and the resurrection. The one who created this is easily the one who creates afterwards. أَلَمْ يَكُنْ نُطْفَةً مِّن مَّنِيٍّ يُمْنَى ثُمَّ كَانَ عَلَقَةً فَخَلَقَ فَسَوَّى فَجَعَلَ مِنْهُ الزَّوْجَيْنِ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى. Out of this creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only created one single type of human being, but two types. الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى. Out of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, two different genders. And based on these two different genders, الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى, male and female, all creation afterwards is created. And then He ends and says, أَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ بِقَادِرٍ عَلَىٰ أَن يُحْيِيَ الْمَوْتَى. After you see all of this, you're left with one question here, to end this whole verses and to think about. He said, isn't the one who has done that, أَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ بِقَادِرٍ, able and capable of resurrecting again? Or getting out of is able to bring that back to life? أَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ بِقَادِرٍ عَلَىٰ أَن يُحْيِيَ الْمَوْتَى. And I said, and if you and I just reflect upon just, I said, these last 2, 3, 4 verses about the creation and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, you would be left with no answer but to say what? Oh, indeed, He is capable of doing that. He is the one who created initially. He's the one who creates at the end. I said, we live in a miracle every single day, so there's no, again, it's so simple for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For us, it's that hard. That's why our minds can't get to it, because it's like, how am I going to do it? No, it's not you who are going to do it. People reject because they put themselves in the place of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like, I cannot bring up that back again. Therefore, it's not going to happen. If I can't prove it, if I cannot do it, then it's not going to happen. No. The one who's done it initially is the one who does it at the end. The one who created is the one who brings back from dead people alive. The scholars, they say, when you hear this verse, أَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ بِقَادِرٍ عَلَىٰ أَن يُحْيِيَ الْمَوْتَى. This is a kind of, it's a negated question that meant for taqreer, meaning what? That leaves you with no way but to answer by the affirmative, meaning not to affirm the negation, but to say, isn't He subhanahu wa ta'ala capable of doing something? You say what? No, indeed, He is capable. Meaning they say, we're not negating, we're negating the negation. So I said, no, indeed, He is capable. This negating the negation is called, what is called in Arabic, they use the word bala. Bala. Meaning that, no, indeed, He is capable. Right? Because it said the answer to the question was, isn't He capable? You say, no, He is indeed capable. So when you hear this verse, the scholars recommend, they say what? When you hear, أَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ بِقَادِرٍ عَلَىٰ أَن يُحْيِيَ الْمَوْتَى, isn't this one who has created capable of resurrecting them or recreating them or bringing them back from the dead? One of us should be responding and says, بَلَى إِنَّهُ عَلَىٰ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. Indeed, He is capable, He is able of everything. And He is able to resurrect it all and bring us back all from the dead. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all who heed from the warnings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even though these verses are talking about the day of judgment, they're talking about what's going to happen afterwards, they are revealed to living people. The revelation is a revelation for living people. So He said that we take heed. It's not addressing people who passed. The people who passed, they are done. There's no way out for them. But the revelation is addressing living people, you and I, to take heed from it. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us among those who hear the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the lessons from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and take heed from it, take guidance from it, take following from it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the day of judgment for us an easy day. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrect us and put us back in Jannah in the most beautiful way. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the highest levels of Jannah without questioning and without any form of punishment. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes us all into Jannah, following in the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we live there forever in peace, in tranquility, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeing His beautiful face, living with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in His company and the company of all of the prophets and the righteous before us.